man, checking out It's Easy Breezy Live and Uncensored, and I'm your host Danny. And today we have a special guest with us. I'm going to need everybody to put their hands together and give a nice warm round of applause for Steve Hunter. How's it going today, Steve?
It's going well, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Excited. Here to talk about the new album, Before the Lights Goes Out. How did you come about the title name?
Yeah, well, first of all, the title comes from the fact that I was diagnosed 35 years ago with pigmentary glaucoma, which is a certain kind of glaucoma, has the same effect as other types. It increases the intraocular pressure, the pressure inside my eye, and when that happens, it puts pressure on the optic nerve, and it does optic nerve damage. So over a period of this number of years, it's very slowly damaged my optic nerve, and I've lost a lot of sight. I've lost a lot of sight in most of it in my left eye, and quite a bit of it in my right eye. So I still have some in my right eye, but there's nothing that can be done about optic nerve damage. But we have been doing a regimen of drops to keep the pressure in a range which keeps that damage from happening too much. So I was told by several actually, ophthalmologists, that there's a good chance, about a 50-50 chance, that over a period of the next year or so, or 2 years or 5 years, they can't predict, I might lose my sight altogether. So the title of the album comes from that.
Right.
So I called it Before the Lights Go Out because of that.
Right.
I mean, the risk is that they may not go out, everything may be fine.
Right.
I might lose more, or I could wake up one day and it's gone. It's never going to get better, but we have found. I am going in for some cataract surgery.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've had cataracts in both eyes for quite some time now, but they haven't been bothering my sight any.
Mm-hmm.
Up until recently, and recently with my ophthalmologist, we did a few tests, and we both kind of agree that maybe it is now affecting what vision I have left. So I'm going to have the cataracts removed to see if that doesn't help with what vision I have left.
Are there steps?
The problem is, though, is that within the 24 or 48-hour period after you've had the cataract surgery, there is a spike in the pressure which could cause me more damage. So they're going to have to keep a very close eye on that. I have to go in the very next day and see if my pressure is okay. You know, they're going to keep really close tabs on it.
Okay. Is that coming soon?
I'm sorry?
Will that be happening soon?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, next week. I'm going in on November 7th. I go in.
Okay. So
for the first eye, and then I think it's about 2 weeks later. We have to wait 2 weeks to do the second eye. Okay.
So did you know that information before releasing the album?
No, actually I didn't. I had, of course, I have ophthalmologist appointments like every 3 months to keep a good eye on my pressure, to make sure that the pressure is stabilized. I'm doing about 3 different drops, you know, to kind of keep it down in a range that the ophthalmologist feels is safe. And it's been working. It's whatever the regimen is, it's been working. It's been keeping it down in this range where she doesn't think there's any more further damage occurring, and I can tell because I can see it happen. You know? Right. When I lose some sight, I know it. You know, but so far it's been doing really well. But I didn't know about the cataract surgery at the time when I finished the album. I didn't know about that until about 3 weeks ago. Okay.
I'm sure it had a lot of inspiration, this process, when creating the album. You have 10 songs, correct? I've listened to 10 songs. These 10 songs, were they 10 songs that you knew you were going to create, or did you get in the mode of just creating and then you came out and said the number is going to be 10?
You know, that's a little hard to say because some of the songs I'd actually, there are 2 or 3 of the songs that were actually written 10, 15 years ago that I hadn't finished. I had just written them to a certain stage, and then I never finished them. So I was just going through some of those old songs, and a couple of them hit me. I thought, well, I ought to finish that. I kind of like that. So I would kind of dust them off and put them into Pro Tools and work on them. And so some of the songs were actually old songs that I revitalized.
Softtail Deuce?
Yeah, that actually, you're right. Softtail Deuce was an older song.
One of my favorites. On the album. Yeah.
Good, yeah. I wrote that about 10, 12 years ago. I never finished it. I only got about half of it done. But I liked the idea, so I kept it.
Yeah.
And then on this album, I thought, well, I'm going to pull this thing out and finish it, because I always liked it. I always liked the groove of it. And so that's what I did. On 3 or 4 of the songs were pieces I had written a few years ago.
Yeah.
Under the Bodhi Tree is also about 12 years old.
Right. You can hear it. As far as the time on it, you can hear time on it. You can definitely hear the time on it. Happy Trails. How was it creating Happy Trails?
Well, I mean, when I was a kid, I used to watch the Roy Rogers and Dale Evans show. It was on television every Saturday morning, and it was kind of a dumb, hokey, sappy kind of cowboy show. Mm-hmm. But, as a kid, I loved it. And I always loved it when Dale and Roy would ride off into the sunset singing Happy Trails.
Right.
And I wanted to do that just as a way to end the album in not any kind of a weird way or anything, maybe a little poignant, but not like, well, it's all over kind of thing. It was more like, hey, we'll see you again. The album's finished, we'll see you again.
Yeah.
And I really wanted Karen to sing it because I like her voice, and we've done other things together. Karen's been a professional singer for many, many years, so we worked on these. I worked on the arrangement. So it's a hard song to work on because I had the old version so stuck in my head I couldn't get it out of there.
Right.
So it took a little while, but with some experimenting and playing around and stuff, we came up with that arrangement.
So tell me, what inspired Mojo Man?
Well, as you know, blues guys, those old wonderful black blues masters, have been talking about Mojo for years upon years upon years. Mm-hmm. And I used to always wonder what it was. And it's one of those kind of things where you ask somebody what it is, and there's no real answer, Mm-hmm. It's very mysterious, and I always loved that. So you kind of know what it is without being able to say what it is,
Mm-hmm.
So that song was one of the older ones that I kind of worked out. I was in a blues band in Los Angeles back in the very early 2000s, and I was writing some songs for them, and that was one that I had started too that I never finished. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, the band broke up before I even got it finished. So I kept that one, and I pulled that one out, and I thought, I got to finish this one because I like that thing. It's kind of Hendrixy in a way, and so I finished that one, and then I asked my buddy Joe Satriani to play a solo on it for me because he's a good friend, and I love his playing. And it just sort of has this almost acid rock, acid blues kind of thing about it, which I just love. I always loved that music, especially in the 60s. So that's where that came from. I had originally called it something else. I don't remember now what it was, but when I was listening to it and working on the drums, I thought, no, man, this song needs to be called Mojo Man. That's what this song needs to be called, because that's what it's about.
Right. Would you say blues is one of your favorites?
Blues is everything to me.
Okay.
When I first started playing guitar and taking it seriously, it was all about blues. I got turned on to Cream, the old English band Cream, and of course Jimmy Page and Led Zeppelin and Jeff Beck and the Yardbirds and John Mayall. I didn't know about B.B. King or Albert King or any of those guys. And I don't know why that was. It could be that the area where I was a bit racist, and we couldn't get access to those records. But when I found out I would read articles from Eric Clapton or Jimmy Page, and they would talk about these guys: B.B. King, Elmore James, Muddy Waters, Johnny and Clark. I didn't know what they were talking about. I didn't know who they were talking about.
Right.
So I started doing some research. There was no internet, so I had to kind of just ask around and ask people. And
did they have magazines at that time?
Huh?
Did they have magazines at that time?
Oh Yeah, they did, and I bought lots of them, dude. I bought lots of them to try to find out who these people were, and then when I realized who they were, then I went over to Champaign, Illinois. I lived in Decatur at the time. When I went over to Champaign, Illinois was where the University of Illinois is, and there was a lot of really great campus record stores over there. So I went into one of them and found incredible amounts of blues.
Mm.
So many people, I didn't have enough money to buy all the albums I wanted to buy. It was like a kid in a candy store.
Right.
So I bought B.B. King. I loved him. I bought Albert King. I bought Elmore James. And then I started kind of getting into the Delta blues, like with Mississippi John Hurt and Robert Johnson, of course, because Robert Johnson was mentioned by Eric Clapton all the time about the Cream, Crossroads and all that stuff. It's all Robert Johnson stuff. So it actually made me mad that the English guys had to tell me about American blues.
Right.
It really pissed me off because I thought, well, why in the hell didn't I know about this? You know, why didn't I know about these guys? And then I just got absorbed with it. I finally actually got to meet B.B. King.
Did you?
And oh man, he's the sweetest guy on the planet. He was the sweetest guy in the world.
Man.
And he told me a couple things. He said, look, man, because I kept telling him, I said, you know, BB, I keep listening to your records, and I try to play like you, but I don't sound like you. And is it because I'm a white guy? And BB said, no, man. He laughed at me. He thought it was funny. He said, no, man, it's got nothing to do with it. He said, look, man, you know what it's like when you remember what it's like. Have you ever had a girl treat you really bad? And I said, well, yeah. And he said, well, do you remember what that felt like? And I said, well, sure. He said, well, you put that in your fingers, and that's the blues. Mm. And I thought, oh, man, that's like the heaviest thing. Now, the king of the blues told me that blues is a feeling. Mm. It's a music of feeling. And nobody had told me that before. I was just a kid. I didn't know. I was like 18 or 19 or something.
Right.
And then he said, look, man, don't try to copy me. Listen to the records and learn from them, but don't try to copy. Don't try to be me. He said, take the blues and make it your own. That's what'll keep it alive. And that was another thing that knocked me on my butt. Those two things that he told me guided my whole career. Mm. Everything I did from that moment on was based on what he said to me. Mm. It was the most beautiful, wonderful thing. I have the greatest love for him. He was the gentlest, kindest, sweetest guy, and I didn't know what to expect. You know, mm-hmm. when I walked up to him, I thought he was going to say, "Hey, man, leave me alone." You know? But no, right. Man, he was so bloody cool to me. He was so cool to me.
Right.
And I just loved him from that moment on. And just the coolest guy. He just kind of cruised through. He was a magician to watch play and sing. He just was a magic thing to watch. And the night I saw him, he just blew me away. He was so good.
And after taking in a lot of the advice he gave you, how was it so that you applied it in your style of music?
Okay, well, here's a good example. I had been hired by this producer named Bob Ezrin, who had produced the early Alice Cooper stuff, and I also worked with him on Lou Reed and a bunch of stuff. He called me up one day to come in and play some overdub some guitar solos on Alice Cooper's $1 Billion Babies album. And so I went to New York and went into the studio, and he played this track called Sick Things. And I said, well, geez, I don't know, what am I going to play on this? You know, it's a pretty bizarre track. And I said, at the end of it, I said, well, Bob, what do you want me to play? And he says, well, I want you to play here at the end. And I said, well, yeah, but what? And he said, just play like blues. Just play Cream-style blues. And that's exactly what I did. I just played Clapton, B.B. King blues. And it worked. And it worked. So from that moment on, every time I got called in to do a guitar solo, I looked for the blues in it. If I could find blues in it, I knew I could find a guitar solo. And that's the same throughout my whole career. That's the same throughout all of my music. everything I do is blues based. Every single thing. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's finger picking. A lot of the finger picking style I learned was Travis picking, which was used. The modification of that was used by Robert Johnson and Mississippi John Hurt and all those guys. They all used that sort of alternate bass thumb picking kind of stuff. They all made variations of that.
Mm-hmm.
So blues is just 90% of what I do.
I've watched an interview with you, and would you say that rock came from the blues?
Oh yeah, no
Okay.
question about it.
Okay,
I jazz too, you know.
Right. I thought I was getting that from you. I just wasn't sure if that's what I was hearing, because I would agree also.
Well, I mean, I've always thought that. Well, there's this burst of the blues started a lot of stuff. It started jazz, and it started rock and roll. I mean, the first rock and roll. The only difference in rock and roll and blues really is the fact that it's not, most rock and roll isn't shuffles, swings like early blues was.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, that early blues swing translated into jazz just magnificently. But in rock and roll, we tightened up that eight feel. It got tighter, and they got more syncopated and things like that. But still, the blues is all through. I mean, you think the Hound Dog and all that stuff. Hound Dog was a blues tune. It was written for, I think, Big Mama Thornton, and Elvis got a hold of it, and it became a rock and roll classic. You know, but it's still a blues tune.
Right.
And there's millions of examples of that. I mean, the Cream did that all the time with Robert Johnson tunes, and the Stones did it with Elmore James tunes and stuff. I mean, it's just all over the place. It translates. All you do in blues, from blues to rock, is to turn it up and syncopate it, and that's rock and roll. Yeah, that's what I like about instrumental music is you try to say stuff without saying words. You try to do it with just how you play and the way you construct a melody or the way you put together the song. You try to convey a message or some kind of image or something like that without saying a word. I tried, listen, a long time ago, I wanted to write songs like everybody else. I sat down and I labored over the lyrics for probably a month, you know, and I thought, okay, well, these lyrics are pretty good, I think, you know, and then I was driving in my car and I had the radio on, and Yesterday came on by the Beatles, and I thought, okay, I can't write lyrics. The lyrics just blew me. Oh my God, those are great lyrics. I can't, and I'm not even close to that. So I just decided, okay, you know, let's stay out of the lyrics. If I were a singer, I think I'd have a better handle on how to put words together and form the lyrics, because I would, you know, you have to sing them, so you get more of an idea of how those ideas can be conveyed with words as a singer. But I just didn't do that. I wasn't a singer, so I became an instrumentalist, and that's what I like. I like the fact that maybe I can set up an image that everybody can see when they hear a song, or everybody can make their own words up, or everybody can get their own feeling from the song.
Right.
I like that. If I put words in there, then you kind of have to follow the words.
Right.
But if I don't put them in there, you can go wherever you want to go with it.
Right.
Which I absolutely love that. I think that's a wonderful thing.
It's a platform itself. Yeah. It definitely is.
Yeah.
It definitely is. Do you have a choice of guitar?
No, not really. You know, it's a funny thing. I have several guitars that I really like. I have a Jeff Beck Strat, signature Strat, that has a David Gilmour EMG pickguard assembly in it that just sounds phenomenal. But I also have a Gretsch Black Falcon that sounds terrific. You know, I have I just got an Ibanez Birdland from the 70s that sounds fabulous.
Wow.
And I have a couple of prototype Squier guitars that sound fabulous. I mean, I just got a nice little pile of. Right now, it's down to about 6 guitars, 6 or 7 guitars. I used to have 30, but that was just too much. I couldn't take those all to Spain, which is where Karen and I are going. So we cut those down to about 6, 6 or 7.
When are you headed to Spain?
Well, we have our tickets. We're flying on December 6th. We'll get there December 7th. And we're moving there. We're going to live there.
Spain. How long did it take to think of that decision? Is that something that, you know, took over time, or is it?
Well, I think we probably took about a year. We started talking about it because, you know, Karen's parents live there, and they're doing really well. They're in their 80s, but they're doing really, really well. Mm-hmm. And we both sort of thought that, well, you know, Karen needs to spend more time closer to her parents,
right?
Because we were, you know, 5,000 miles away from them. So we took a trip there in March of this year, and I loved it. I didn't want to leave then. I wanted to stay there, and I said, well, okay, Karen and I both decided when we go home, we'll get ready to leave, and that's what we've been doing. Since March, I finished the album. I couldn't really do anything until I finished the album, but I finished the album, and then we started making plans on selling the house and the car and getting rid of gear and all that kind of thing. So we've been doing that for the last, I don't know, 3 months, maybe 2-3 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we're on our way.
Oh, on your way. That's going to be exciting. That's going to be very exciting.
Man, I can't wait, dude. I can't wait.
Are you going to set up the room like you had it before?
Yep. I'll still be recording as long as I can.
Okay, that's good. That's really good. Any plans for the album?
Well, I can't really tour. There are several reasons. One is my eyesight at the moment right now it's making it difficult to see well enough on stage to play for me. But also it tends to be pretty expensive these days to tour. I don't know how guys do it. I just, you know, but it costs money to tour, and so I'm probably not going to tour. It's just going to have to be one of those things where we do interviews like this, and we do some radio things and stuff, and hopefully word of mouth, and get it that way. I don't know what the cataract surgery is going to do. I don't think it's going to help that much. It's only going to help what vision I have left. And so I don't know if it's going to help that much. But, you know, if it does, I'll rethink it. But I somehow don't really think it's going to help all that much. I recorded it in my house.
The whole album?
The whole album.
Was there ever a point where you thought that would happen growing up? I know the music industry has changed so much. Did you ever think?
Well, the only time I started thinking about that was after I went into a recording studio for the first time. I thought, oh man, how cool it would be if I had a place like this where anytime I felt like it, I could just sit down and record stuff. Right. So I kind of wanted it early on, but then, you know, in a recording studio in those days, several $1 million. So I thought, well, I'm not going to have that kind of dough. But it was cool though, because as the technology developed and got more and more into computers and more digital and stuff like that, then it became possible. And I was getting really excited about all the new technology, so I jumped right on it. Did
you see it happen before it actually happened?
No, I didn't. It sort of caught me a little off guard, but I was glad it did. You know? I thought, well, this is cool. I like this.
What era of music would you think was your favorite?
Well, it's hard to say, because I like a lot of different styles of music.
Did you have fun?
Probably the 60s.
The 60s?
The 60s and the early 70s.
What was going on at that time that you enjoyed?
Well, there were two kind of basic forms of music. There was something I call acid rock, which was sort of like Jefferson Airplane, let's say.
Yeah.
And then there was the blues rock, which is like Paul Butterfield, Michael Bloomfield, who I just adored. I loved that guy's playing. So there were that kind of thing. Plus, I liked Janis Joplin, of course, and then of course Jimi Hendrix. You know, what I liked about the '60s there was an enormous variety of music, and all of it was good.
Right.
I mean, geez, it was really hard to hear a bad record in those days, you know, or a bad performer or a bad song or anything. I mean, there was something going on then. It was like part of it was the fact that I think it was just a renaissance, you know, period. But I don't know. When I listen back at the Beatles and Rolling Stones and Zeppelin and all those people, I think, my God, that was I went online one time and I looked up a Billboard chart from I think it was 68 or 67. I don't remember exactly. But what was funny was that on the top 10 were like a Beatles, 2 Beatles songs, a Rolling Stone song, a Zeppelin song, and a Frank Sinatra song.
Uh-huh.
And then, you know, maybe a Joplin tune. It's just this wonderful mixture of music that was in the top 10. Now it's so genre-oriented that it's all the top 10 sounds is the same.
Right.
It's almost like the same song is kind of rehashed. And back in those days, it wasn't like that. It wasn't like that in the 70s either, although it was kind of going that way.
So,
and in the 80s, it was still kind of cool, you know, except now it turned into what I call fashion rock. Because of MTV, everybody had to look good. So it was more about how you looked than anything else. So, but in the 60s, it was wide open. And I just loved it. I couldn't believe, man, you turn the radio on and you could listen all day and never hear the same song.
yeah.
But you'd hear all this incredible music.
That's tough to believe. You know, times have changed as such. It's tough to believe.
Oh, it's too bad because there was some great R&B stuff. I mean, in the late 60s and the early 70s, right around Motown, right around when Motown had built up in Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
Detroit was a great city because it had hard rock and roll, like MC5, had a really good rock and roll base, but then it also had Motown. So it had this beautiful R&B stuff and soul music and funk, and then on the other side of the coin, it had all this great rock and roll stuff. Detroit was really a slamming place for a while, for a few years. And I hated it when Motown left Detroit, but you know that had to happen, you know.
Yeah.
And but that's what I'm saying. All the music, man, it didn't make any difference. There wasn't a genre for R&B. There wasn't a genre for soul. There wasn't an R&B for hard rock or metal or any of that stuff. It was just music. Was there any specific people that you liked working with at that time? Those times? Well, back in the 60s, I didn't really do anything. I really didn't start in the business in a professional sense until about 1971. Mm-hmm. I did get to play with Jack Bruce. I got to play with him in a couple of things. On a solo album he did, which he was a bass player with Cream, and so it was like a real thrill for me to play with this guy. You know, he's a great singer and a great bass player, and here I am playing with 1/3 of Cream. You know, I was really excited about that. Yeah. Yeah. I wish I could have played with some of the guys from the 60s because I really loved this stuff. I loved what they thought and all that stuff. I was born a little late, I think, for that.
Hey, well, you made your own footprints in the sand.
Well, I hope so.
Have you ever came across anyone who really wanted to work with you and got the chance to work with you and just kind of let you know?
Yeah, actually, Lou Reed. When I first worked with Lou Reed, we found out that he had heard an arrangement I did of a song called Rock and Roll, which was a Lou Reed song that I did with this band called Mitch Ryder in Detroit. It was when the Detroit Wheels had broken up, and Mitch had put a band together called Detroit, which was more of a rock band. Mitch was more known for soul. He was what Otis Redding called the best white soul singer he'd ever heard. So he's just a little Italian boy, you know. I mean, he's a great singer. And he reformed the band as a rock and roll band, and I joined the band, and we did an album, and I had done this arrangement of a Lou Reed song called Rock and Roll, and Lou had heard it, and he wanted to use me and Bob Ezrin, the producer, on his next record, because he really liked the version of what we did. So, yeah, that's kind of how that starts, you know, and then it's like you kind of jump from one thing to the next, and that's how a career sort of falls out like that. It's sort of one thing leads to another. Right. How was working with Tracy Chapman? Oh, man, let me tell you, to play those songs every night was an absolute heaven. She wrote such beautiful songs, and I got to play more than one guitar. I got to play electric guitar, acoustic guitar, mandolin, dobro. I got to play all these instruments, and I hadn't really ever done that on stage before, and it was a real blast. I really enjoyed doing that.
Right.
And but her songs, I mean, she just writes amazing songs, and to get to play those every night was fabulous.
So I see you're pretty active on Instagram, also.
Yeah, well, Karen takes care of that for me just because of my eyes. And she can do it way faster. I can do it, but it's a lot slower. So she takes care of all that stuff for me. She keeps a good eye on that, and on Facebook and on Twitter.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, we keep. I like them. I like all three of them. I think they're a lot of fun. I mean, I don't always like the way the applications work, but I do like the idea of them.
Right.
So, you know,
being able to get in touch with the people so quick, I would imagine.
Man, that's a great part about it. Yeah.
What do you think times would have been if these type of platforms were around back in the 70s?
Well, you know, I gotta say that I think, in a way, I'm kind of glad they weren't around in the 70s, because I think what happened, the way music and everything developed in the 70s was better without it. Now, I know that's weird, but the way people passed things on in the 70s without social media was much more intimate. It was more one-on-one, you know. And now with social media, all you have to do is go on the internet or go on Facebook and look at videos and watch videos and then learn stuff from videos and stuff like that. It's less personal, and it's not quite as I don't know if it's as heartfelt. You know what I mean? I don't like when I talked to B.B. King. Now, this is a one-on-one thing. Here the man is standing right in front of me, and I'm looking in his eyes and I'm listening to his voice. That had a profound effect on me, and I don't know if it would have had as much effect if I'd saw a video of him talking about that on Facebook.
Right.
I don't think it would have had that much effect. But to talk to the man right there in front of me, telling me that stuff, it had a profound effect on me that affected my whole life. So part of the 70s, I don't think would have happened the way it happened had we had social media like that.
I would agree also. I would agree. And I'm not going to take up too much more of your time here, Steve. I definitely want to thank you for just stopping by and picking up the phone. Would you like?
My pleasure.
Would you like to close out with the just promoting the album and your social media accounts and everything?
Well, you can. The best way to find me is if you don't even want to mess with going on Google and all that stuff. Just go to my website. It's www.stevehunter.com, and you can find my Facebook account, Twitter, and you can find all about my career. Karen did a great job setting that up, and it's really easy to get around. You can find my Facebook, all my Facebook information, Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff is on my website. It's the easiest way to find all that other stuff. You know what I mean?
I sure do.
And the album is on there. The album is represented on there. Karen did a video for On the Edge of Uncertainty. I think that's on there. So that's the best place to go. If you have anything you want to find out about me, go to stevehunter.com and you'll find it all out there.